I have the pleasure to introduce Alexandra de Vries. She is a professional translator and a Master of Conference Interpreting from York University with several years experience in a number of areas and markets, and currently wears those two hats in her home base of Barcelona. In previous lives, she did lots of other things, including an undergraduate degree in European studies, and she worked as a travel industry journalist. In fact, if you ever check out the Frommer's Brazil or the Frommer's Rio travel guides, there's a good chance that you've read her work. As part of the last job, she traveled to thousands of places throughout Brazil to check out all they had to offer, including restaurants, of course. And she knows a little bit about that topic of her presentation. She also cooked and a great pad thai, and she's ever inclined to, which she's often. So now we will be listening to Alexandra's video. She was not able to join us, but she kindly sent us a video. So please go ahead.
Hello. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about food as an experience. It seems like everything we do today has become an experience. When you go online to look at a website, when you purchase something, everyone's worried about your user experience, your customer experience. When we travel, we are no longer tourists. We are looking for a cultural experience. But all this fancy marketing aside, I want to focus today on food as an experience. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, when I grew up in Holland as a kid about, 50 years ago, food was quite simple. You had normal food at home and you had special occasion food. And for me, going out to eat at a friend's house when I was 5 or 6 already felt like a major expedition. You would have different smells, different dishes. They would have different table habits. And to me, it really felt like going out to a restaurant. Of course, I did occasionally go out to a restaurant with my parents or grandparents, but those were the special occasion ones. It would be someone's birthday, maybe Christmas or Easter or a Mother's Day brunch. We would rarely just go out for the sake of eating out. And even back then, the options of the food options, the variety of cuisines were very limited. I remember that we would mostly have to choose between pizza or Chinese food. And then the Chinese food that I grew up with is very different from Chinese food that I've had everywhere else in the world. In Holland, Chinese restaurants cook up a hybrid form of Chinese Indonesian dishes that are adapted to local Dutch taste. And so the menu in a Chinese restaurant will include things like chicken satay, or even the Indonesian rice tafel, which is a collection of 4, 5, 6, 7 dishes served with white rice and fried rice, and a lot of really yummy options that wherever I went somewhere else to a Chinese restaurant, I could never find those dishes that I had grown up with. Now, of course, we are speaking from a position of privilege when we talk about food as an experience. I don't want to delve too much into a very, very serious and somewhat depressing topic, but I do want to point out that if you have the luxury of treating food as an experience, going out, enjoying delicious food and a variety of cuisines, that you are privileged. There is still a lot of hunger in the world. People either don't have enough to eat, or they have a very poor, unbalanced diet. And even today, around 10% of the population is still affected by hunger. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, conflicts, climate change, This number has actually gone up again in the last 2 years after going down for a significant number of years. So that just as an aside, that we shouldn't take anything for granted. Now, fast forward to the 21st century. I think it's very clear to everyone who thinks about this concept of food as an experience that food experiences come in many shapes and sizes, and entire industries have emerged around this. Of course, there is the restaurant industry in itself, and I think just by looking around most cities, we see a much greater diversity of restaurants, anything from Thai to Vietnamese to Middle Eastern to Ethiopian to even French, Italian, all the different cuisines that maybe we were a little bit more familiar with growing up, but that have also diversified. So you can find more regional cuisines and more authentic cuisines where people really focus on a certain region or a certain style. So, as an interesting aside, with this growth in the restaurant industry, we've also seen sort of the growth of celebrity chefs. The other day, I was talking to someone, and we could name quite a few number of celebrity chefs. On the contrary, other people, when I asked people, how many Nobel Prize winners in medicine or physics could you name, people came up with very few names. And when you ask them about a celebrity chef, all of a sudden, people know about Jamie Oliver and Gordon Ramsay and Martha Stewart and Anthony Bourdain and et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite interesting to see the level of celebrity that some of these cooks, or of course you have to call them a chef, have achieved. My favorite one is Ottolenghi, Yotam Ottolenghi. He's an Israeli chef. I believe he lives in London, like a lot of the famous chefs do. And he specializes in Israeli, Middle Eastern cuisine with a lot of fresh ingredients, a lot of vegetarian dishes. So if you haven't heard of him yet, check him out. And then, of course, there's the woman who kicked off this whole rise in celebrity chefs, Julia Child. If you haven't seen the movie about her, it's worth seeing. She was an American cooking teacher and author who became the very first television personality with her own cooking show. She was the one who brought French cuisine to sort of the bigger public, and in particular the American public. She wrote a cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, and then she later had a television show, and it premiered in 1963. So she really is one of the first to do the traditional cooking show, where she walks you through all the steps of making a dish, the ingredients, tells you a little bit about the food. Now, my personal recollection goes back to the 90s with Emeril Lagasse. I don't know if any of you remember him. He was very famous for his very dynamic cooking show and his trademark catchphrase, BAM! And he made Creole dishes, again, a cuisine that wasn't sort of at the forefront of fine dining back then. It wasn't high cuisine, haute cuisine, like French or fancy Italian. So it was interesting that he was able to bring a whole new style of cuisine and cooking to people's attention. Now, even these cooking shows have changed quite a bit. In the old days, they usually focused around one person, a chef, who would show dishes, show you some techniques, explain the ingredients. But nowadays, we have seen everything from reality shows like The Master Chef, Britain Bakes, America Bakes, Anyone Bakes. We've even seen some of these transformed into games where people compete against each other, where there are treasure hunts, where people get a batch of mystery ingredients and have to make something on the fly. We also see more and more shows that have become mini food documentaries where the program makers take you to a region or a city and go and explore food markets and talk to people and visit restaurants. So all of this really has become part of a growing interest in food. And an interesting statistic I found is that 8 in 10 Americans watch cooking shows. And baby boomers, which is sort of the generation I fall in, they're defined as people from 46 to 64 years old. More than half of us watch cooking shows very often or regularly. And of course, these cooking shows inspire a lot of other spin-off industries. Chefs are selling knife sets and dishes and cookbooks and accessories. So very interesting to see all of that. Now, that's just all on TV or on the internet. But even in real life, I think we can see that a lot has changed in our eating habits. We go out a lot more for regular meals, but also to socialize. And 72% of millennials go out to eat at least once a week. Now, I'm not talking about, when I talk about food as an experience, I'm not talking about just going out for, a quick lunch bite or a quick dinner after work, although of course that could just as easily count as a food experience. But I'm also talking about a growing interest in food tastings, in tasting menus where you have 5, 6, 7, 8 dishes prepared by a chef, where you have wine pairings with each dish. I also see more and more food fairs where for 1 or 2 days at a really interesting location, sometimes a historic site or a beautiful square, vendors come together and they sell food. They sell prepared food, they sell gourmet ingredients, fancy mustards or salad dressings or freshly baked bread. Even food truck fairs have become very popular where you see a whole collection of food trucks making all kinds of different dishes and cuisine coming together. And that has become an attraction in itself. People will go there just to try different foods, just to sample different things, look at food, maybe even watch a cooking demonstration. And that's also a trend when we travel. We're seeing more and more people traveling and looking for these food experiences. And that is not just trying a different cuisine or maybe going to a city and going to a restaurant that has a famous chef, but also taking workshops, cooking workshops or cooking classes. I know a lot of people who go to Asia and they will take a workshop on making Thai food or Vietnamese food or making sushi in Japan. And you also see even local tours, including food experiences, where a guide will take you to a local market, show you different fruit and vegetables, and perhaps take you to a local restaurant that you might not find as easily on your own, so that you can again sample something that's authentic and different and gives you a cultural experience that goes beyond just looking at something. It's a way to really interact, not just with the culture, but also with locals and of course with food, which is something that we need, but most of us also really enjoy. My dream holiday would be a cooking vacation in a Tuscan villa where you spend 4 or 5 days with a chef, and every day you go out to the local markets to buy the ingredients. You watch the chef prep the meals, they teach you how to cook, and then of course you eat a lot of great Italian food paired with amazing Italian wine. So that is my dream, but that will have to wait a little bit because of course the pandemic changed a lot of these habits. And again, when we were at home, food became an interesting part of our routine. I found that I started doing things a little bit differently. Of course, I wasn't able to go out and socialize and eat out. And I found that even though I was able to order regular takeout meals, after a while that also became a little bit boring. And so I tried a whole bunch of different things. I ordered meal kits where you pick dishes and they bring you all the ingredients. So you still have to cook them, but you don't have to go out and shop for all the ingredients. And you also get the ingredients in the right amount of, the quantities are already set aside, so you don't waste a lot of ingredients. Then at one point I hired a home chef, someone who came and prepped a meal at home. That was for a birthday and then also for a New Year's Eve, just because we wanted to go out, but of course weren't able to. And so we tried to bring that special food occasion to our home. Other things I tried were assembling your own meals, where you get a catering service, but you still have to finish everything and plate the dishes so that you can make them look really nice, like in a restaurant where you finish it off with a little bit of a drizzle of this or that, or you put some garnishes on. So that was kind of fun. The other thing I tried, and I know a lot of people did, and a lot of them were far more successful than I was growing my own food at home. I mean, I had a balcony. I live in a sunny, warm climate. And so I thought, hey, why not try growing my own food? So I tried peppers, I tried tomatoes, I tried strawberries, I tried a whole bunch of herbs like basil and parsley, chives. And I have to say, after about 2 years, a year and a half, I have been able to grow about 2 regular peppers and 4 jalapeno peppers. So not an overwhelming success and certainly not self-sustaining, but it was kind of fun. And I think I'm going to try again this spring, now that I have a little bit more of experience and I moved and have a slightly bigger balcony. So again, as a self-professed foodie, I have to admit that I love all of these trends. I like having the variety and the diversity of food available around me. I can walk out my door and I can buy fresh ingredients from Asia, from Africa, from Latin America. I can select 10, 20, 30 different cuisines within a 10-block radius of my house. I can prep things at home. I can turn on a YouTube video and get inspired and get ideas for what to cook. I have food hampers with different fruit and vegetables delivered to my door, so they force me to be a little bit creative. One week, all of a sudden, I have 6 beets, so then I go online and figure out what to do with these beets. And even though we see that so many things around us are going virtual, we have virtual reality, augmented reality, more and more of our experiences are online due to some of the restrictions, of course, but also because we are looking for convenience and accessibility. But I think that some of you may even have shared food or drinks with other people online when we were locked down and raised a toast with someone else who was on the other side of the world. I do find it very reassuring that tasting and sampling and cooking food is all about that personal tactile experience. And I'm very glad that I don't see how that could ever go completely virtual. And it's something that I really, really enjoy. So anyways, these were just some of my musings on food as an experience. And hopefully I've given you a little bit of food for thought to think about food as an experience in your own life. Thank you.